one I'm the one reaching out to people, reading emails, sending emails, getting copies from doctors, and of course it's my responsibility, but also it's if this is what you do for a living, do your job. And so it was not a pretty experience, but I ended up leaving on break or whatever, medical leave or whatever they call it. And during that time, there's where we're getting to the story of the first video that I made of my COVID experience. That's what it's called. Check it out. So during that period, I had the surgery. I'm recovering. My parents end up going to church on a Friday in November. So it's like post heart surgery. They go to church. They get infected. They infect me. I don't know I have COVID until pretty much 2 to 3 weeks later. But I returned back to work November the 1st. I send all the proper documentation. I send the accommodation letters from the doctors to whoever needed to through email, through the departments of disability, and it was just a hot mess. But I did my job. I did what I had to do. It was very frustrating. And what happened next? Oh, so I come back to work. They put me in an area where I'm not supposed to be. I tell them, hey, I have accommodations. I get into it with one of the managers because he tells me that I'm a liar, that if I had accommodations and if this was wrong with me, they would put me in a whole different floor. And I have to explain myself to every manager because they're like, you should be in the first floor. And I tell them, well, I'm in the second floor because I came to work in the first floor. And in the first floor, all they do is pallets of boxes. And I get a very ugly allergy because of the powder that the boxes release. So I break out all over. So I informed them that the old manager transferred me to the second floor. This manager wanted me to go back to the fourth floor where I am originally from with my manager. And I said, well, my manager knows about it. And he's like, well, your manager requested you. And I'm like, don't speak from a manager. Have my manager chime me, which is like a direct message employees have. Or email me, I want proof. He's like, I don't have to explain anything to you. So we're just back and forth. And I'm like, you know what? I don't need to speak to you. I'm going to go to your manager. And that's what I did. I went to his manager. I told him what had happened. He moved me back to the second floor, but in the opposite side. He told me he was going to move me from managers, that he's going to meet my accommodations. He's a new manager because the old manager that moved me to the second floor is no longer there. I'm like, okay, what do I do? He's like, go to the second floor when we get back on Monday or whatever, blase, blase. I'll fix it. I'm going to meet the PA. He's going to put you in an area that will meet your accommodations. So I'm like, okay, great. When I go to the second floor, I have to go and find whoever's in charge because they're not even in their area. And I tell them, hey, this is going on. He's like, oh, well, I have this area for you. I look at it. And when I see it, I'm like, this is dirty. There's a dirty area. There's pallets. I'm allergic to these boxes. I cannot do this. I just had heart surgery. I cannot lift anything in my arm because they did a procedure to my arm. It's called a stent procedure. And they went into my heart. And so I explained to him, he's like, well, he literally said, well, this is all I have. Sorry. And he walked away. So I'm like, well, I'm stuck with it. Let me just try to do it. I lift up just a little bit that box and I heard something crack in my wrist. Right where I had the procedure. I have a little like dot right here. this little dot here, they went in through here, they went through the main artery, and they went into my heart, unclogged some stuff, re-stent something, put more stents inside of my heart arteries. Different story that I will be making, that I have made, but I'm going to make it better. Not make it better, but make it edited and all that. So I ended up hearing a pop, and it started hurting, getting inflamed. It was just puffy, and I couldn't find a manager. 30 minutes to an hour later, I find someone from HR. They went to apparently lunch, which I found out they were lying. They were just on a personal break that they shouldn't have been taken, because they take their lunches early, apparently. I don't know. So he gave me his email. I write him an email of what had happened, because he's telling me to do it. And then he told me that he's going to send me some forms for workers' comp, blase, blase. And when I go to the hospital, they admit me. They keep me for about a week. And then they told me not to go back to work. So that's going to be another 2 weeks. So I'm in the third week of November. And that's when my COVID hits. The COVID hits. And so I cannot only send them the workers' comp people what's going on. I just send them an email to the HR, to the workers' comp, disability service. I reached out to these people. I did send an email. There's timestamps explaining what had happened, and that I would communicate with them as soon as I get out of the hospital. Well, that third week, I ended up getting COVID, so no communication there. It's when I'm in the hospital, I'm letting them know that I have COVID. Haven't worked since October, haven't worked since November, and I'm having issues getting compensation from them or having them wanting to treat me. I had already gone to the doctor for my wrist, not knowing I had COVID. So I had to resolve everything myself. And then they finally called me from Anchor, which is what they do to handle workers' comp people or whatever cases. And I was so dumb to say, well, you know what, just cancel it. I already took care of it. Then my doctor gives me a paper telling me that I have to see workers' comp. And that's the only way he can discharge me or whatever, or have me go back to work. So I'm screwed, because I told him, well, I told them no, I canceled it because I had already fixed it. I was waiting for the doctor to communicate back to me. They didn't do it until later, so I was like, I'm screwed because I don't know what to do. Then I called the disabilities services area people, and they're like, we can't help you because it's a workers' comp case. Then I finally get a hold of workers' comp. They're like, you have to try to appeal it. Send me an email. I sent an email to everyone that works in the workers' comp department and Anchor. Haven't heard from them since. It was about a week and a half ago to 2 weeks already. Then I applied for COVID leave. They finally gave it to me, barely. And I was so behind in my bills, so it ate all of that. And I went through hell getting that financial stability check thing that they give you for 14 days or whatever they do at Amazon when you get COVID, which is not enough because they take taxes. They gave me apparently $800, right? So they take taxes. That's $100. My benefits, that's $100. I don't even know how I ended up with $400, but something happened with these $200. I don't know what happened with these $200. I think it's more benefits and more taxes. So I'm left with a $490 check.